Hello and welcome to Viewpoints, DominionDMS's video podcast series where we highlight our vendor partners. I'm Sharon Kitzman, I'm president of DominionDMS, and today I'm speaking to Eric Schlesinger. He's the Chief Revenue Officer for Active Engage. Eric, it's been a month, almost to the day, since the last time we chatted about the industry and your solutions, our solutions, et cetera. I'm excited to hear what is happening at Active Engage post NADA.
Yeah, I think as I explained to you, NADA this year for us, it was the first time in the 17-year history of the company that we ever took the step and exhibited. So, I've exhibited in the past with previous companies and stuff like that. So my expectations were, they were set pretty low from the standpoint of expectations and what we're going to get. It ended up being, a great show for us, whether it was from the booth presence and people coming and seeing us, or the visibility that we had walking around and being able to have conversations, as an example, with you at your booth and so forth. And I think that this NADA had a little bit of a different tone than a lot of them in the past. Dealers were much more engaging. They were much more eager to find out information, to learn about you and your company, versus in the past, where you quite often found them walking around head down, badge turned around so you didn't see the color of it or anything else. But right. It was great, and it was great to see everybody. The last few years have obviously been interesting when it comes to large gatherings like NADA and stuff like that, but we're back, and it felt really good.
That's a great way to put it. I definitely felt like this was my 33rd NADA. It definitely felt like a pre-pandemic NADA energy, and to your point, engagement from dealers. So, well, that's fantastic. Friday and Saturday were just crushed, but Sunday, everybody has a little bit more time on their hands. And as I kind of walked down the main street, or the main drag there, in the hall, I can't even count. I don't have enough fingers, I guess I should say, to count the number of times that I saw the term AI, right? It felt like everybody was pitching artificial intelligence, whether it existed or not. At least they were wanting to talk about it because it seemed like it was the buzzword. If you think about, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I was just going to say, if you think about how much AI can really do to help dealers, is there a place for it, or is it just the latest buzzword?
No, there is a place for it, and you're right. It has been one of those buzzwords in the past and stuff like that. But with the introduction of ChatGPT, in December of 2022, and then companies starting to go and to use it and to find places for it, there are absolutely places for any business to be able to go about utilizing some of these tools. And I'm going to preface that no matter how you use it, you do still need to back up whatever it is that you're getting out of it with your own research, your own conclusions, and so forth. It's not perfect. It absolutely has a place in things like business processes, looking for ways to write things like policies or to understand certain nuances. Remember that that these systems were built in many ways to be able to act as super search engines more than anything else, and to be able to present answers, to what it is that you're asking questions about. And they're also limited on the data set. So if you use ChatGPT as an example, depending on which version, if you're using 3.5 or 4.0, the data set that's inside of it only goes to a specific date. It's not connected to the internet where it's able to pull in current information, current data. It's always been curated. That being said, where I believe that AI does not currently have a place, especially in the automotive industry, is on the consumer facing side of things, in real-time conversations. You don't want AI necessarily being the one that's answering the phone, and explaining that it's your personal assistant. I mean, I had one dealer tell me how he's got this and how many times he's listened to the phone calls of people on this, and they just sit there and go, hell no, and hang up the phone because they want nothing to do with talking to a computer. Or the same thing comes when it comes to messaging, live chat and stuff like that. I think we've all heard the story so far about the customer who was able to get the Chevy dealer like in Wisconsin
The
and using the
Tahoe, I
AI.
think, yeah.
There were two things. One, he was able to buy a Tahoe for $1. I
That's
drive a
right.
Tahoe, so I know how expensive they are. As well as was able to get it to write code in Python, on the
Mhm.
dealer's website. So there's that might not necessarily be the place. I mean, let's face it, buying a car is a pretty emotional and complicated thing. I don't think we're there where a computer's telling us how to do that yet.
Yeah. No, I heard you say something similar on a podcast recently with Jake Davis at, I think it's Volley Rally.
Yes. Yep.
And you said, at the end of the day, people buy and service cars from people, not
That's exactly
robots.
correct.
And while there might be efficiency gains inside the operation, when it comes to the consumer experience, dealers need to be really, really careful to squelch the AI hype a little bit and not look to, I guess, save a buck in lieu of upsetting a prospect. So
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
guess well-trained team members inside the dealership is still kind of number one priority.
It absolutely is. I mean, and we're hearing it, as I'm sure you are right now. It's now that we are, I can say, I guess, officially post-pandemic and back to quote unquote normality. Dealers are having to teach the salespeople that they've hired over the last few years in the stores of how to sell. Because they all got to this place where for a few years they were order takers. They were as Apple calls it, like the Apple geniuses, where they were just educating the customer on the product and the options that are available and helping them go through the ordering process. That's not it anymore. We need those people that are able to create those relationships, to create those connection points, and to give that consumer the reason to be able to transact with that dealership. As I said, it does come all the way back down to people.
Yeah. So speaking of kind of post-pandemic and looking forward, I guess, you come off of a great show, you've got lots of leads to follow up on, I'm sure. Your client base probably saw some other things that they liked around the show too, and are maybe kind of pushing you to expand your product offering. Is there anything you'd like to share with the audience today, kind of about where Active Engage is headed? There's so much that's kind of tangential to the process that you facilitate for the dealer, something like a digital retailing or other solutions. I'm sure you're getting inquiries.
Absolutely. We get, so when we made the decision, we really brought ourselves back to our core in 2020. Leading up to the pandemic and everything, we were trying to create all of these different products and services, and whether it was white labeling or having it where my sales team would kind of go into a dealership and almost just like throw up on them, like, look at all these different things that we can do. And we realized, during the pandemic, that messaging is our core. Like, this is what we're super good at. And we recognized that the dealers at that time really needed us, more than anything, because their staff was at home, furloughed, any of those other things. So what we've done, in fact, is sat there and looked at ways to partner with other companies to be able to integrate with them, whether it's with their DR tools or with their service scheduling tools, so that we somewhat stay agnostic around it. But we do also see places for us to go and make our own improvements. We were just talking about AI, and we are believers in AI. It's just how we use the AI versus being consumer facing. We are using it so that it's agent facing, meaning that our customer engagement experts are having the ability to have answers given to them more quickly, to be able to have suggestions on how to answer things, to help with training and facilitating and things like that. But where that communication still goes is from the agent, human, North America agent, to the consumer. So it's still this person to person. We also,
Mhm.
as if you may have seen at NADA, we launched a new product feature. It's really a product around telephone conversion into text messaging. And the
Okay.
basic, we call it flip to text. But the
Mhm.
idea of giving that customer the ability when they call the dealership to not have to wait the average 70 seconds on hold, or not be the 23% that aren't answered, and allow them to simply hit a number and have that converted into a text conversation. And so now they can communicate in the method and the time frame in which they want to communicate.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
great.
all just about how to improve messaging.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you said stick to your core and what you do best. We have the same philosophy at Dominion DMS. As a DMS provider, we're not really interested in anything outside of what dealers expect from a DMS in the core functionality around OEM integrations, third-party integrations,
Mm-hmm.
accounting, parts, service, sales F&I. But there are other DMS providers out there that are trying to be everything to everybody, and I just don't believe you can do it and can do it well across the breadth of solutions that dealers need. So that kind of brings us back to our strategy in partnering with wonderful solutions like yours from Active Engage in order to be able to offer dealers choice.
Right.
Maybe for the dealers who haven't heard about the integration between Active Engage and Dominion DMS, maybe talk a little bit about what they could expect that integration to look like.
Yeah, I mean, so if as a dealer you're not aware of it, Dominion DMS has taken a very unique and different approach to providing a DMS that is the core. So it's going to have those core pieces that you need, but then also recognizes that dealers utilize a lot of other providers, whether it's
A
utilizing an
lot.
Active Engage, right?
A lot,
Or,
yeah.
for their messaging platforms, or if it's using, Darwin for their desking capabilities, or, another one for their, like a Cox or so forth for their
Mhm,
uh, digital retailing tool. And
mhm.
the flexibility that, Dominion DMS is going to be giving the dealers is for them to be able to have the knowledge that not only do they have this great core robust DMS system, but if they are using Active Engage as their messaging provider, that Active Engage integrates into the Dominion DMS ecosphere and allows there to be some of this additional transactional aspects going back and forth. The initial ones that we're working on with you all is service scheduling, and then we'll get into like RDR reporting, so we can truly
Mhm.
be able to give the dealer more robust reporting into understanding the ROI and so forth on what it is that they're doing with us, as well as what it is that they're selling. And
That's
we're
right.
excited.
Well, good. And, if ever we can give you more data in a secure, of course, fashion, that's what we're looking forward to, is to make this integration as efficient for our common client on the other side of the keyboard so that they're not having
Absolutely.
to
And as you said, always keeping
input
it
data.
secure.
Mhm, definitely.
it, yes, that is a
Um,
big thing these days.
So we talked a little bit about how NADA felt a little bit different in a good way, right? Our industry here is ever evolving though. And in 2024, there seems to be starting off a little bit differently for dealers. January, there were some kind of not great numbers posted. I think February recovered a little bit, but
Mhm.
there's certainly more margin pressure. Some key OEMs are walking back their aggressive EV push from 2023, and inventory volumes are definitely back to where they want, even if the mix isn't quite right yet.
Yes.
So as you and your team sit around and hear, I'm sure, from
Mhm.
dealers that you're working with about these changes and these new pressures coming at them. What do you talk about as ways that you can help them through these changing winds and tides?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point, and it absolutely has, reverted. I think is somewhat of a better way to say it. I think we all have very short-term memory and forget exactly what it is that we were going through as an industry through 2020 and into 21. Uh, and what we're seeing again is the need for high quality leads, customers that are transactional, that want to, go down the path and the process of buying a car, and not simply the quantity of leads, but more back into the quality is what they're looking for so that they can work them better, create that better relationship with the customer. Because, like you said, I mean, it is the aspect of back to, well, hey, I understand that you really want the one with the black interior, but I have one with a gray interior. You can go home with it today, or we
Yeah.
can order it and wait. And so that also goes back to the part we were talking about earlier of those salespeople that were quote unquote order takers need now to be salespeople again, and to
Yep.
be able to sell those advantages of getting your car today versus waiting for the order.
And
And as well, I mean,
maybe a little bit more work for less commission as well,
well, that's
unfortunately.
definitely the case. So yes, and then it also just goes into the service aspects as well. Service departments are super busy and super
Mhm.
full, and it's taken people a month or two to get an appointment if they need like a diagnostic. So even the way in which that part of the business is being handled, creating
Mhm.
again that relationship transactional aspect, because you don't want to give that consumer a reason to go down the street to somebody else.
That's right. That's right. So it is changing times, as we mentioned, but it's also really confusing for dealers out there. Like you, I'm sure I had a chance to have many conversations with dealers at NADA, but a couple of nights I actually got a chance to sit down, take a few minutes, and have more in-depth conversations with a handful of dealers, and they all said it. They're just confused. There's so many solutions, a lot of vendors making a lot of new offerings in the market, and they're really confused about how it all fits together. And, unfortunately, when people get confused, they tend to take the path of least resistance, which is to not do anything,
Yes.
because they're not sure they're making the right decisions. So dealers thinking about, purchasing solutions and services from Active Engage, can they come to you? Can they get a clear understanding of where you fit in the solution
Yeah,
suite and who your partners are that can also augment those solutions?
yeah, we do. I believe, I'm sure that somebody will tell me differently. But I did even do a test the other day with a friend that happens to own a Sprinter dealership, and his marketing director or CMO, uh, quote unquote, mystery shopped one of my guys. I knew it was happening. And because I asked him, I'm like, give me all the feedback. And he came back and said,
Mhm.
honestly, I got nothing to give you. He did a great job. So I think that, and they are now a customer. I think that we do a really, really good job of explaining what it is that separates us, what makes us different, who are our partners, and why we've taken the path to wanting to partner with other best in class companies versus trying to, you know, be the jack of all trades. So yeah, and we really like to explain why we've taken this approach of being agnostic, but also really making sure that everybody understands, back to the thing we've already spoken about a couple times. We believe in the power of people, and especially in this industry, I think it's one of the things, understanding is it is a complex industry. It's a complex consumer. It's a complex purchase. And we need to be able to remember that and to be able to help that consumer through those complex issues.
Yeah. And it's one of the most expensive purchases that a consumer will make in their
Yes.
lifetime as well. So I saw on your website that dealers can contact you directly, and that website is www.activeengage.com. There's 2 E's in the middle there.
One E.
They can 1 E. All right.
1 E.
I had
But
that
if they
wrong.
type 2, they'll still get there. We own them all.
They can also find that website by going to the DominionDMS.com page, navigating to the partners section, and then typing in something obvious like active or engage. Once they do that, and once they send a lead or an email in through your site, what's the next step? Should they expect somebody to contact them? Is there a demo? How does the sales cycle work?
They will typically receive a contact back from us. If they provide a phone number, they'll be getting a phone call. It will be within typically 5 to 10 minutes. If they don't provide, obviously, then it'll be an email that goes back to them. Yes, they should expect getting a demo, and also, us explaining what separates us. Demos aren't long. We're not this, crazy thing. It's only going to take about half an hour, 40 minutes, and that includes questions. For assurances as well. If the manufacturer does happen to have any sort of a certified partner program of the sorts, we are part of each and every single one of them. So
Right.
we've gone through all that due diligence as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay. So as we close out here today, I kind of always ask the same question of my guests on the podcast, but since you and I just talked at NADA and I asked you that question there, I'm going to ask you a different type of question. We've been talking a little bit about AI and kicking it around in the industry and how real it is and how dealers should be thinking about it. So my question to you today is, what do you think the top benefit of AI is in the automotive industry, as well as the top risk?
The top benefit is process streamlining processes, looking at ways to simplify, looking at ways for efficiencies. Whether it's through follow-up processes, whether it's on service scheduling aspects of things, or ordering things like parts, and looking at ways in which to have best-in-time inventory aspects and or scheduling people and stuff like that. There are a bunch of risks. I mean, with any new technology and how it's used, we're at the very, very beginning of AI, and where we are. I mean, there are leaps of which it's going to end up going. It still has issues and problems, like we talked about earlier. The fact that a consumer was able to convince the AI to sell it for a Tahoe for $1, or there's the aspects that there's this delusional piece to AI, where AI happens to it dreams in essence, and sometimes creates answers that are not correct, and it's a delusion. The problem with that is that unless it's caught, it then uses the answer that it just created as fact, so that in the future, when it's asked another question and it can relate back to that answer that it already gave that's wrong, it uses it again and cites it. So those are the types of places that we need to be careful, really, checking, also making sure that the information that does give back to us is valid, before we just go and blindly implement something.
Yeah. I do believe it is the future in the world, right? In not just our industry, obviously, but I think baby steps are definitely warranted with this one. So, well, thanks, Eric, for joining me today. Thanks so much for your insights into the industry and the great solutions that Active Engage brings to its dealer clients. And again, I'm so glad that you had a great NADA this year. Best of luck to you and your team.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.